the last one was this post that I read over the week was this one from Ben at Stratechary. So he had this really, man, it was so good when I read it. I told EK about it. I was so excited when I read it on Tuesday. He had this really interesting premise in it. It lost its wheels after a while. It was about the agentic web and its original sin, and he kind of touches on what Horowitz said in the early days. You remember this, Keyan, where he wished he would have had, or Andreessen and Horowitz said about the early days about how he wished he would have had commerce built into the browser and all that stuff. But he also talked about how, like, just in general, how ads, how I guess Google has, was a big proponent of the ad supported web, and how search was, how Google, here it goes. Let me just go to the diagram. How Google was the marketplace to get you to the website that was going to allow you to visit, let's say, any website here, and then allow you to serve up ads. And AdSense was a part of that, and it created this kind of like open web, you know. And then he gets into the what was released this week with the agentic web and MCP and all that kind of stuff, and how Microsoft is going to allow you to connect and maybe you guys know more about this than I do, but how they're going to allow you to connect this this thing that attaches to every website that will allow an API or an application that's connected to a chat GPT, for example, that then recalls whatever information from a website that then can come back and serve your customers or serve data from your website. And then he goes on to explain how after that, he sees microtransactions, which he clearly gets wrong, and says how like stable coins are going to be a big thing, and how you'll be getting paid fraction of a cent. And if anybody has ever been a Spotify artist, it's not a very lucrative endeavor to get paid fraction of a cent on a website. Um, and that's where he kind of loses me after that. But he does end this by saying he does see there's like this protocol layer that is going to be users AI content, and he touches slightly about silos and about different creators, and it's kind of all the stuff that we've been talking about in Bitcoin for a while now, similar to what Stacker.News is doing. But I thought it was a very interesting piece from Ben, because he's a very deep thinker and he talks to a lot of these people. But he actually has his own business with his own like membership stuff, and so he's already doing well for himself. But yeah, any thoughts on this, Keon? Did I explain it well?
I think you did a pretty good job. So AI is the death of ads is caused by AI and like agents browsing the web for us. And so human eyeballs aren't present to get infected with ads. So we'll need alternative monetization models, and the alternative monetization model that he imagines is micropayments. So that, I think that is the train of thought here. On the stable coin point, I think Lightning Labs is making that prediction, and Tether is making that prediction that that it will be stable coins. And this kind of almost ties back into the rebranding Bitcoin and the units and stuff. Part of why stable coins might win, or one of the ways that people are proponents of or one of the reasons they're proponents of stable coins is because they're familiar to people, and there's not something new that they have to learn. They can, I got a penny on the internet. I don't have to learn about Bitcoin. I don't have to learn about the units that Bitcoin has. I know what a penny is already. And so sometimes things just are like that simple. And so that's why we even see Bitcoiners thinking that stable coins are going to win out for a period of time. Yeah, I never liked ads. I think there is a place for ads. I think they make sense. in certain contexts. I think it's just gotten way out of hand.
Yeah, the weird thing though is, and this is where I'll slightly push back, because if you ask any artist that has music on Spotify, like that doesn't work. Like I have music that from my band, and I don't know if Austin, if you can chime in too. I don't know if you guys have music on Spotify, and I've had it for over a decade, and it's literally like fractions of a cent. Like it doesn't add up to much. I think it's like
Well, what
20.
about, I think a more direct comparison is he's imagining a WAV lake, but it uses stable coins.
No, but let me just finish this point real quick. So it like it adds up to like fractions of a cent, to like $20 a month, like in fiat, right? And then because so that's been going on for since 2009, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
So since 2009 to 2000, what are we in? 2025. So over 15 years, I've seen it go from almost a penny to now it's like a fraction, less than a fraction of a cent. So that's how much it's inflated, right? For me personally. So it's gone even lower now. But if you go to podcasting, like, a podcast, if denominated in sats, can get you anywhere between like $20 to $50 per show, right?
Demominated.
Sorry.
No mom.
Sorry. So that's where I think that's where, to me, it doesn't compute for me, because I've seen it from both ways. Like, I don't understand why, and maybe you're right. Maybe over time people will get it, but I think if you said, Car, I want to, use whatever media thing that I want to pay you a fraction of a cent to access your website and look at your blog posts, and it's just going to be streamed to you for viewing it per second or whatever that's going to be, whatever they decide. To me, I would just say no, just look at it for free, because I know just from the past using Spotify and being a musician, that doesn't scale. Like, that doesn't work. That's where I'm coming from, experience, already having gone through that for 15 years. Does that make sense?
I see. So you're saying, but I think the difference there is that it's not consumer to producer. Like, that's the primary difference between the podcasting example and the Spotify example, is that it's Spotify paying the producers, and then the consumers pay Spotify. And so the Spotify's operating sort of as this necessary middleman. I think, I don't know how he explains it in this, but I think you can imagine a microtransaction environment where that doesn't actually happen.
Well, no. So like you go through like I think we went through like, I forget what it was, like core or something, and you keep like 90%. It's not like you don't keep like 100. It's like 90% of it, of the sales. You just pay like an upfront cost for it. So that's why I'm saying, like, there's not, like, there's always going to be middlemen with these things. That's why I'm saying, like, there's not like they're not taking they're not shaving anything from Spotify's not shaving anything.
My main point is I don't think the difference between Spotify and this, theoretical, hypothetical future is Bitcoin and stable coins. I just don't. I don't think Spotify is the example of a fiat, and then we have something like Fountain as the example of Bitcoin. I think the currency used is sort of irrelevant.
Well, no, because I think maybe I'm explaining it wrong. So like in the early days, we had iTunes purchases, and then over time, everybody just moved to Spotify. So it was more back then, because people would pay with, would buy the song through iTunes or whatever. And I mean, in aggregate, it would be like iTunes, Amazon. It's an aggregate of everything. Spotify pays the least. So you're grabbing, and I would have to show you like the dashboard that shows you all the streams and all the paid purchases that you're grabbing from. But it's not that much. It's like, it's all fiat, depending on how popular you are.
Can I give an anecdote?
Yeah, go ahead, Austin.
Maybe Austin. I think it's like different product experiences. So it's like with Spotify, I'm going to get pennies per thousands, per tens of thousands of views. But the thing is, I'm going to get way greater distribution. But like back in the day when we were on Bandcamp is like, okay, it's this platform. There's, a fiat integration, whatever. But we could charge for songs. We could charge for merch. Like we probably, for a very, very small band, Lifetime, made thousands of dollars on Bandcamp, $2,000 or $3,000 over 10 years. Whereas like on Spotify, probably double, triple, quadruple the amount of plays made like $1, right? So it's a huge economic difference there. But I think a lot of that is like the experience and the fact that like, are you going through an intermediary like Spotify for your distribution? Or are you just setting up a page through like a tool and then you are taking responsibility for your distribution, charging what you think you should charge, and then people pay or they don't, people listen or they don't, they find it or they don't.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Austin. I actually this is where I go back to my original conclusion that everything's moving to silos and curation. I actually think the whole dollar fractional stablecoin thing is a dead end leading to what musicians already have gone through for the past decade and a half. We already know where that goes. And that goes to only the aggregators, the open AIs, the people that are making these agentic open thing that they're calling these fractions of a cent thing, like they make the most money. And the only people, I'm saying the only people that actually win are the live musicians and the ones who control their distribution.
So is the future that he's proposing, is it the agents who are doing micropayments to the websites? Like if that's the way you describe it, then it makes the Spotify example makes a lot of sense to me relative to like the
So
iTunes
the last
model.
thing that I want to say before handing things back over to Satya is to just sort of press on these like 2 points about why like open is so important here. So, it is unbelievable what can happen in the world when simple components and simple protocols that are composable with one another are out there, exposed to the full scrutiny and creativity of every developer in the world who wants to participate or who has an idea. This, thought game that I play with myself all the time is like trying to imagine what the web would have looked like if one of the actors in the early development of the web, like say the browser manufacturers, had decided that they wanted to vertically integrate and own the entire web. 100% of the web would have been dictated by the limits of their imagination. And it's just obvious with 30 years of history that wouldn't have been a very interesting web that we would have had, because the web is interesting because millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people are participating to make it into this rich, dynamic thing. That's what we think we need with the agentic web, and that's what we're hoping you all can get inspired to go work on a little bit, to riff on, and to use the full extent of your imagination to help make this thing interesting.
So I don't buy that. Microsoft has never made anything interesting, especially right off the bat. So this is where I'm trying to say, like, I think musicians already gone through this, and in some ways, I actually think these people do mean well. I just don't think they have the experience knowing that where this is already headed. And I believe that they do mean well. They're going to try to do this agentic web, but it's just going to lead to the same outcome, where you're going to have these big, and unfortunately,
the agent runners are going to be Spotify, and
that's not good for creators.
Can I just give my take, which I guess kind of picks up on this? Two things I want to say. One, a lot of people are trying to define, this is the protocol that you can use for agents to interact with X, Y, and Z, for agents to interact with money, for agents to interact with data. So there's kind of a race where all these big companies are like, no, don't worry, Microsoft, we're going to deliver you this open protocol now. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be so open, and you're going to use our protocol, right? And so for me, that's
red flag.
It's a red flag at the very least. It's interesting, and we already see with MCP, Anthropic is getting huge advantage. They've started this incentive vortex where other companies are wanting to implement their protocol, and developers are building on their protocol because you're able to connect this great tool with this great tool, right? And so it's a very powerful thing. And picking on what you were saying, Car, this is why I think that it's so important for us to make Lightning and self-custodial Lightning great and competitive, because micropayments being made just all the time, micropayments here and there, small wallets being held by agents. None of this is going to work without completely centralizing all the infrastructure. Especially if we're in stable coins with this, that's even one other layer removed. Like if we were talking Bitcoin only, already we're in a world where that's very much going to centralize to a bunch of providers that are holding the money and executing the transactions. But then you add stable coins on top of that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, the agentic open web with open protocols could actually just be another web of giant companies and giant intermediaries that are holding the data, that are holding the payment infrastructure, and that really you want the bottom up payments solutions to lead the way for this, I guess, agentic web or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's going to be gatekeepers. That's what you can tell, that's what's happening. They're trying to make gatekeepers, and it's good. I'm looking forward to the fight. I love it. You need people on both sides. Cool.